I haven't heard of any other ethnic group in the Congo which has suffered the same fate as the Tutsi population in the Eastern Congo. One of the colleagues was saying, what about the other ethnic groups? I haven't heard. I'm not Congolese. Maybe the Congolese would know better than I do. Of any other ethnic group that has suffered the same fate, as a consequence of which it takes a decision that it must protect itself.
I'm a king. Yes.
That conflict in the DRC is a domestic Congolese conflict. There's a view that is taken hold among some people that is a conflict which has impacts on the sovereignty of the Congo. And therefore, there's some outside force. When you talk about peace in the DRC, about ending this intervention by some outside force, no. The conflict in the Congo is fundamentally a conflict among the Congolese people. And derives from the fact that there's a section of the population of the Congo in the Eastern Congo, which the government in Kinshasa does not want to recognize as Congolese. This is the Rwanda-speaking population. During Mobutu's years, Mobutu said, these are not Congolese, drive them back to Rwanda. You even had a militia formed in the Eastern Congo, one they called, for instance, Mai Mai. Those years. Not Mai Mai in Kombot, but Mai Mai. With a specific task to drive out these Congolese-speaking Rwandans, these Rwandan-speaking Congolese, to drive them out into the Congo, into Rwanda. And that's why the M23 gets formed. Because the Rwandan-speaking Congolese say the government is not protecting us, we must protect ourselves. I don't know where the particular conflict is going to end, but again, what I hear from the Congolese is that in reality, today, 70% of the population of the Congo supports the M23. Because they are saying the country as a whole, for some reason, has developed a hostile attitude towards the government in Kinshasa. So what we might very well see is this rebellion among the Congolese against their own government. I have absolutely no doubt that Rwanda is very keenly interested in what's happening in the Congo for two reasons. One of them is the one we've been talking about, which is the presence of a Rwandan-speaking population on the Congo, in the Congo, which is a matter of the drawing of the colonial borders. The colonial masters draw a line, and some Rwandan-speaking people are on this side of that line and that side of the line. I think it would be unnatural for Rwanda not to be interested in what's happening to the Rwandan-speaking people across the border. Secondly, as we all know, some of the people who committed genocide in Rwanda in 1994 ran into the Eastern Congo, where they still are to this day. The FDLR, who say that one of their tasks is to overthrow the government of Rwanda. That's the second reason that Rwanda would be interested in the Congo. So I have absolutely no doubt that the Rwanda is very interested in what's happening in the Eastern Congo. What they do practically in terms of interventions and so on, I don't know. Except in instances where the government in Kinshasa has actually authorized that the Rwandan army can come in to deal with the FDLR. I haven't heard of any other ethnic group in the Congo which has suffered the same fate as the Tutsi population in the Eastern Congo. One of the colleagues was saying, what about the other ethnic groups? I haven't heard. I'm not Congolese, maybe the Congolese would know better than I do, of any other ethnic group that has suffered the same fate, as a consequence of which it takes a decision that it must protect itself. The basic question I'm raising is that you will not solve the problem, the conflict of the Congo, unless you deal fundamentally with this domestic issue. When the Congolese met here and sat in Sun City and negotiated the Sun City Agreement, this was part of the discussion. The Congolese colleagues will remember that one of the formations that participated in the Sun City dialogue was an armed organization called the RCD. The RCD, sometimes people call it the Goma RCD. The RCD essentially represented that Banyamulenge population, accepted in these negotiations as part of the Congo. He participated in negotiations, and some of the decisions taken in the inter-Congolese dialogue were about the proper integration of that Banyamulenge population in the army, in government, and so on. You would find there's a resolution out of the inter-Congolese dialogue which deals with the issue of national minorities. The formal resolution at Sun City, the reason that that resolution was adopted was to deal with this question. So I'm saying the Congolese, when they met together, they recognized this problem exactly for what it is and dealt with it. And I'm quite sure that was also reflected in the constitution that was then decided upon based on the Sun City outcomes. After the Sun City negotiations concluded, and the Congolese took a particular position, the positions I'm explaining, this is how we are going to deal with ourselves as Congolese about our country. As I say, reflected in the Constitution. We then thought it was also necessary to deal with this issue of the relationship between the DRC and Rwanda. So we hosted negotiations here in this city between President Joseph Kabila and President Paul Kagame. And we're saying to them, the Congolese have taken a particular position about how to sort out their own problems. You need to contribute to that as countries which neighbor each other. So they signed an agreement. And one of those agreements, the issues decided in that agreement was the government of the Congo would act to disarm the FDLR. Another part of that was Rwanda would withdraw its troops from the DRC. It was important both to solve this problem of the conflict among the Congolese by the Congolese, but it was also important that the neighborhood contributes to that solution. And that was why that agreement was signed. It didn't work. And the reason it didn't work was because in reality, the DRC government did not have the capacity to disarm the FDLR. So if you are on the Rwandan side of the borderline, You would say, but the FDLR problem has not been solved in terms of the signed agreement. Those are some of the realities here. We can go into more of these realities about that situation, but fundamentally, to resolve the conflict in the Congo, we've got to go back to the Congolese and say, what did you agree at Sun City? What did you put in your constitution as a result? What have you done about the things about which you agreed? I think that's what would help us to solve this problem.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king, I think I'm a king,